Hello everyone and welcome back to My Opinion. And the Rajasthan Royals have beaten the Kolkata Knight Riders by 7 runs. And while the Knight Riders needed 40 off the last 4 overs to win, with Chahal going as well as he was, you really thought they should have won the game from that point. But they did incredibly well to get to a situation where the win was in sight. But unfortunately, the 17th over saw a capitulation with 4 wickets being lost. Some excellent bowling from Chahal, but this over really derailed the chase for the Knight Riders. The win was in sight, but it was going to be quite a bit more difficult to win after the end of that over. And Umesh Yadav played a terrific hand of 21 to get his team close to the finish line, but they lost all 10 wickets in the end and lost the game by 7 runs. And the bowling wasn't great this game, let's be honest, from either side. I mean, apart from Sunil Narine, no one really had that great of a day with the ball. I think that even for Shivam Mavi, his last over kind of saved how he was going in his first 3. He bowled his last over really well, but I think that in the end, it looked, again, it looked good because his side conceded, 217 in the first innings. And I think in that kind of scenario, even one good over can save your figures regarding the situation. So going at less than 9 and over, and when your side is conceded 217 is a good effort in that regard. But Sunil Narine, 2 for 21 in this 4 on such a belter of a pitch. The second time where his side has conceded above 210 runs on the same surface, and yet he's gone at less than 6 runs and over both times. So an outstanding day for him. His 150th IPL match, and he showed us why he's been around for so long at this kind of a level that he's bowling at. And there was a poll in the first innings to say, is Sunil Narine the best KKR player ever? And hands down, he is. But apart from that, even the Rajasthan Royals spinners, I'm sure they'll admit that, especially in their first 2 overs or so, and for Chahal in his first 3 overs, again, they didn't bowl great at all. And I think that Chahal, he gave 37 runs or 37 runs in his first 3 overs, picked up a wicket. And in his last over, he really turned the game with an excellent bowling. So despite the fact that he finished with 5 for 40 and 4, this was by no means one of Chahal's better days, especially in his first 3 overs. And even for Ashwin at the start, he went slightly better, but he still did give runs in, I thought, his first overs, especially his first one. So I think both the spinners would admit that on a surface that was quite a belter of a surface, when they were on the most... again, not everyone can do what Sunil Narine has done on 2 occasions now when his team has conceded above 200 runs. And you've seen Ravi Bishnoi do a similar thing this tournament as well. So again, some bowlers have managed, but more often than not, I think that it's, again, in these kind of conditions, the spinners are going to go for runs, and even those of the caliber of Ashwin and Chahal went for runs today. But I thought that they really came back, especially in both their last overs. Ashwin dismissing Chahal with an outstanding Russell with an outstanding carrom ball, and Chahal getting 4 wickets, including a hat-trick in his last over, to really derail the Knight Riders' chase. And regarding the starting 11s of both these teams, 2 changes for the Rajasthan Royals, I think. So Ubed McCoy was in this side, and I was actually surprised of his inclusion, because I thought that with the desired 4 overseas players, they would have wanted to play Josh Buttler, Shimron Hetmeyer, Trent Boult, and either Jimmy Neesham or Rassi van der Dussen. And I think with playing Jimmy Neesham, they would have got that extra kind of assurance at number 6, and also more assurance in the 6th bowling option. But in this case, they played Ubed McCoy because they wanted to bolster up their death bowling that has been pretty poor in this tournament so far. And certainly I've seen him in the CPO bowl overs of the death bowling variations, kind of slow ball variations. So he can certainly do the job and do it much better than what we've seen from the other players so far. But look, he is still young. He's still kind of and even when we saw today when he bowled at the end, after his first over, he did go for runs. Overall, he went for 41 runs in 3.4 overs, so it was quite expensive. And you'd think, especially with a few deliveries he bowled at the end, he could have gone the distance, but he didn't. So certainly a work in progress, but he would do a much better job than the other options that they've got on the side. And then Karun Nair was in because of the fact that they had their 4 overseas slots taken up. Now, what this does is, I talked about the fact that with, let's say, Jaiswal opening at Padikkal and Padikkal at number 3 or 4, there's a case where can Padikkal, yes, he can score decently quickly, but I'm saying in with the runs that will be involved in most cases throughout the season, especially at this venue, you'd think that would he be able to, let's say if he scores like a 29 ball 40 or something, would you think that someone else will be able to get slightly more runs in those deliveries? And that's the reason why you thought it would be interesting to see how he would go at number 3 or number 4. In fact, he's actually gone to open the batting since Jaiswal isn't in the side. But what happens is now you've got a duo which are probably less explosive than someone like a Jaiswal would be. Now, Karun Nair can score a quick rate. I remember when it was a then Kings 11 Punjab in IPL 2018, and he probably had his best season in terms of runs and in terms of strike rate. So it's probably his most confident IPL season. He's a good player. They're both very good players, and so again, you're not losing out on ability in those in that kind of in the top 6 as such, but. Certainly there'll be more of an onus on Buttler, Samson and Hetmeyer to really kind of get them to those very good totals. And even both for Padikkal at the top of the order as well to kind of set things up for the likes of Samson and Hetmeyer. So a lot more pressure on those 4, but it kind of worked for them today. As in working for them in most cases throughout the tournament. And for the Kolkata Knight Riders, the same side as they played in their previous game. I'm not sure if Sam Billings is kind of still is unwell or not, but I guess with how good of an innings Aaron Finch played today, they'd probably go with the same side. Although I still think that in that number 5 role, if they'd had this kind of a similar or same batting lineup, a structure that they would have had before, Sam Billings at 5 would offer a lot more assurance than Sheldon Jackson, and that is something that they may think about. So the Knight Riders won the toss and chose to field first. And the opening partnership was a big one, 97 runs. And David Padikkal hit a few boundaries, 3 4s, 1 6, but mostly had the job of watching what Buttler was doing from the other end. And Jos Buttler, another outstanding knock today, his 2nd century. I thought the way he played kind of through the V was a highlight of his innings. Whether he muscled the ball for 6 straight down the ground and also hit, I remember, a huge 6 over mid-wicket, a zone that he's been targeting throughout the season so far, going deep in his crease and hitting the ball over mid-wicket. All the way that he was playing with a straight bat off the bowling of Pat Cummins, who once again had a very expensive day today. I think 1 for 50 in his 4 overs. And I saw something, I saw a tweet today where apparently he's given 190 runs in about close to 16 overs or something, picking up 4 wickets. So he's had a match-winning innings with the bats, but with the ball, he really hasn't been too great. And I think it's because, yes, there was some movement in this game, especially when you've got in the 2nd innings with what Trent Boult was extracting from the surface. But for the Knight Riders, they didn't really prove to be too effective for them. Jos Buttler was outstanding, especially playing through the V. And it was a destructive opening partnership, mainly due to kind of Jos Buttler's hitting. And Padikkal also played his part as well, and he hit the boundaries when he was on strike. 97 runs for the first wicket, and I wasn't surprised about this at all. Again, it's on the same surface where KKR were absolutely kind of shellacked by the Delhi Capitals to kind of conceding 215 runs. And so on the same surface where it is a belter to bat and a belter to bat on, and yes, you're coming up against a side which has nowhere near the same amount of batting depth, but if Jos Buttler and Sanju Samson and Shimron Hetmeyer get going, they can destroy any attack. So I think that with the high-scoring nature of this surface, KKR are going to find it quite difficult. And I've said about both these two bowling sides, where it's a case of they really want to destroy the opposition batting side before the last 5 overs, because they will go for runs to the death. And with the conditions that you've got today, yes, the ball is moving around at the start, but generally you haven't exactly got the opportunity to do so, and that's why both sides struggled, especially through the middle overs. And so, yeah, a partnership of 97, but Sunil Narayan dismissing Padikkal for 24 of 18 just after he'd slog swept him for a 6 in front of square. And another great partnership between Joss Buttler and Sanju Samson. And a kind of innings from Samson where I think, 38 of 19. And you could say the player that, and I've used this word quite often, this term quite often when describing certain innings, but really being the backbone to get his side to a mammoth total with others applying the finishing touches. And Sanju Samson, 38 of 19, was another outstanding innings from him. And Sunil Gavaskar said you can't really think of too many players who play the lofted extra cover drive better than Sanju Samson. And in my view, it's just you can't think of any player that plays that shot better than him, because he's certainly especially in the last few years, he's been unveiling that shot quite a lot. And again, with the increased consistency that he's had, especially from the last season and in this one as well, I think we're seeing that quite a bit more often. And yeah, he's probably the best player of that shot in cricket right now. And again, something which the Rajasthan Royals have had going for them this season is that they've got a lot of runs from especially Joss Buttler, but Sanju Samson and Hetmeyer have played some really important innings. And that's the reason why you'd still think that there's a lot of pressure on those three. But in the end, with how well they've been going, there have been cases where their lack of batting depth could have been exposed. But Shimron Hetmeyer there's been a case where he's kind of helped play those recovery innings and then hit at the end, or just walk out to bat and finish the innings. And again, he walked out to bat after I think when Sanju Samson's wicket fell. Usually, Karun Nair would have probably walked out to bat, but I think as per the situation, it was a right decision for Hetmeyer to walk out to bat at this point in time. And Joss Buttler was dismissed actually in the 17th over off a short ball from Pat Cummins, 103 off 61. And there was a case between the end of the 16th over and the end of the 19th over. I think only 24 runs had been scored in 3 overs, and the wickets of Joss Buttler, Riyan Parag, and Karun Nair were lost in this 3 over phase. And Sunil Narayan had an over to bowl at the death, I think, and that was largely responsible for them not getting as many runs as they could have done in these 3. And 2 for 21 is for the only bowler that had some kind of a decent day. And in the last over, Andre Russell's over going for 19 runs. Shimron Hetmeyer hitting 26 off 13, continuing his great form this season. Along with Dinesh Karthik, he's been the best finisher in this season so far. And 270 for 5, a mammoth total. And you thought with the Rajasthan Royals death bowling weaknesses and the fact that there isn't too much assistance for spinners on this wicket, so you still thought KKR could get the job done, but it was going to be quite hard for them to do. And then they sent Sunil Narayan up the order to bat alongside Aaron Finch. Unfortunately for him, this was a very unlucky run out in terms of in kind of for Narayan, because Aaron Finch hit the ball straight to the fielder, and there was no run there by any means. I think that was a combination of him not really wanting to face Trent Boult, especially with the fact that he's been a bit weak to kind of the ball swinging into him. And also the fact that he probably just would have wanted to get some momentum to the innings. And Sunil Narayan, they promoted him up the order to really give that kind of that impetus at the top. And instead, he was run out without facing a ball. And so Shiraz Said walked out to bat, an outstanding partnership between Finch and Iyer. And just like in Buttler's innings, I think Aaron Finch playing through the V, really muscling the ball down the ground, was kind of a hallmark of his innings. And he kind of just, again, he didn't look to hit the ball too hard. He kind of just used his strength and just lifted the ball for sixes. And yeah, 9 fours and 2 sixes for him. And it's been a case where, apart from 2 seasons for the Gujarat Lions in 2016 and 2017, he hasn't exactly had the greatest time in the IPL. And certainly in 2016 and 2017, I thought he was this was probably the best I've seen him kind of play in terms of T20s in the subcontinent. And he probably had a better record batting at number 5, especially in 2017. than he did. He probably hasn't batted at number 5 in T20s too often, apart from in those 2 years. And again, this knock really reminded me of what he did in those 2 seasons. If they can get that kind of an Aaron Finch in this year's IPL season, then certainly KKR's batting is in good hands with him and Shreyas going so well. And I hope that he can sustain this though, because generally he hasn't had a great record in the IPL, and I think that he hasn't exactly been the greatest form in the last year or so in international colours. But he's a quality player, and I hope that he can kind of sustain this in the season and internationally as well. And so after an excellent partnership of 107 runs between Finch and Shreyas, Finch was dismissed off the bowling of Prasidh Krishna of a 58 of 28. Had really done an outstanding job for his side, because they were actually scoring at above the run rate when you're chasing 217. And with the weakness in the death bowling to come, you kind of thought that KKR were looking like they'd win this game from here. And there was a lot of pressure on Finch and Shreyas, because apart from that, they didn't really get. There's effectively nothing apart from those two. Nitish Rana, 18 off 11, was going well until he tried to get one boundary too many off his Vinder Chahal and was dismissed, I think, caught at long on. And that wicket really, you can say that was kind of the turning point in the game. Yes, you can say the 4 wickets in the 17th over veered the game more towards Rajasthan, but there was an extra bit of pressure felt by Shreyas, because straight after that, Andre Russell was dismissed by a Karen ball from Ravichandran Ashwin. An outstanding delivery. And once again, I've said this about those 2 spinners earlier. It's a case where they didn't have their greatest days, especially in their first 2 or 3 overs. But in both their last overs, a combined 5 wickets, and especially with Ashwin dismissing Russell as well, such an integral wicket at that point in time. Had Russell not been dismissed and he was able to he had the opportunity to face the seamers, then you would have thought that Rajasthan Royals would have lost this game. But R. Ashwin standing up in the end, and after having, especially his first over went for a few runs, and a Karen ball to dismiss Russell for a golden duck. And so far we've kind of seen the magic deliveries from the Pacers in this IPL, so it was nice to see a delivery like this from the spinner, and especially in conditions where, again, it's not really too great for the spinners. And so in this game, Venkatesh Iyer batted at number 6. Now he has done this for India, so again, he can play this role. And I think that with him being dismissed, he was actually dismissed in the over where Chahal got 4 wickets. And I've said this before, so I won't say this kind of too much more now. It's just about the refinity. I'm not saying he's a bad player by any means, but he had such a great impact in the previous season. And this isn't necessarily second season blues. It's a case where you always saw, even in the previous season, he did have kind of a lack of refinement, but he still did get those runs. And he also went well against the West Indies, even though the bowling wasn't great by any means. So I think that when they're bowling well to him, he does seem to struggle. And look, batsmen would struggle, or rather kind of they would be inhibited when bowlers bowl well to them. But especially Venkatesh Iyer, I think that the lack of refinity does seem to be affecting him when the bowlers do go well. And it's something that he's going to have to work on. And look, Shreyas Iyer's dismissal wasn't the greatest of dismissals by any means. Just tried to go across the line of a delivery that was quite full, pitched on the leg stump and was straightening up. And I don't exactly know what he was trying to do. That kind of hit kind of a lot squarer, but that ball wasn't. It was quite full as well, so he was probably better off playing a single down the ground. But he was dismissed for 85. An outstanding innings, yes, but this dismissal really put his side in jeopardy after that point. And Chahal completing his hat-trick with a wicket of Pat Cummins, a waft outside the off stump. And I think that this over really put the Rajasthan Royals in the ascendancy. And Umesh Yadav playing a terrific hand. Yes, he hit 2 6s off Trent Boult, but I thought the shot of his innings with that covered drive through that covered drive off, I think, the last ball of the over, or the second last ball of the over. And I think this is the first time where a team has had 4 ducks in one innings. and I think this has kind of got close to kind of chasing a total above 200, especially this much above 200. So I think, yeah, a good effort from KKR, really good effort from KKR, mostly carried by two players, but they did all they could to kind of get close to this total, and you really would have thought they should have won the game in the end, but that 17th over just about clawing things in favour of Rajasthan. And Obed McCoy, he bowled his first over really well, and he went for 4 or 5 runs, and he did get hits quite a bit in his next 3, but again, it's his first game in the IPL, and he is still learning when he plays other cricket as well. So I wish him all the best, and certainly he would do a better job than the options that they've got in their roster. So that was on this game, and yeah, in the end, the Rajasthan Royals just about winning this game by 7 runs. I'm still not convinced by both these teams, I must say. I've said this even before. They've got the exact same desired bowling template, and you'd think if Obed McCoy kind of comes good or does better in his next few games, if they play him in the side, then certainly the Rajasthan Royals have it slightly better in the death bowling front. I mean, yes, Trent Boult in the last 2 years or so hasn't been too great at the death, but again, you wouldn't mind if he bowls 1 or 2 overs at the death. But again, for KKR, Andre Russell only bowling 1 or 2 overs, and he does bowl well at the death sometimes, but especially in the 2020, kind of in the last 2 seasons before this. But in this season, it's been a bit hit and miss, mostly miss. And I think that yeah, they do have a bit of quite a bit of a death bowling problem, which I'm not surprised that both these sides have had. And that's why you've seen I think there was such a great thing that the game happened in the Brabant Stadium, because on this kind of a belter of a track, it would really test the two sides that have the same desired template, and especially when they're playing against each other. And I thought the chasing side would win the game. And again, it was going to be hard for KKR when they conceded this many runs in the first innings. But I'm not saying the bowling in the second innings was too great either. And in the end, Rajasthan just about clawing things in their favour. But they still do have the batting depth to worry about, in my view. Yes, they scored 217 today, but it's mostly 3 players that are carrying them in Buttler, Samson and Hetmeyer. If those 3 get out, then, and if Hetmeyer doesn't give them that finishing kick, then again, you'd kind of think where they'd go. So things for both sides to think about, with Rajasthan really happy that they got the win. And tomorrow, I think it is Lucknow versus RCB. So again, I think in India it is the next day now, so it wouldn't be his birthday anymore, but a very happy birthday to KL Rahul, an outstanding century in his previous game. And yeah, I think that he's probably one of the most, if not the most talented batsmen that I've ever seen, and he's so good in all formats of the game. As I've said, I mean, he can bat at number 5 in ODIs, open the batting in T20s and Tests, and was once batting at number 4 in T20s and played brilliantly. So a versatile player, and yeah, one of the most stylish batsmen in the modern game right now, and a very happy birthday to him. And for tomorrow, this is happening in the DY Patil Stadium, a kind of a slower ground. And I think, who do I think is going to win that game? Look, I think LSG are a bit too strong for RCB. They're a bit too strong for quite a few teams, but I think that they will win that game against RCB. They may play the likes of Andrew Ty instead of Chamira. They may think of doing that because of the slow surface of kind of this ground, the nature of this ground. But if they want to really get Chamira to bowl 3 or 4 overs up front to get the ball to move around, they can do that. And should be a good game tomorrow, of course, with the likes of Harshal Patel for RCB. They've also got a good bowling attack. So good bowling attacks on both sides, actually, and very good batting lineups. So yeah, let's see how this goes. So I still think Lucknow Super Giants will win in the end, but should be a very good game tomorrow. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe and share this video with your friends. And remember, this is my opinion. What's yours?